Every 26 million years, something very destructive happens to life on Earth. Mass extinctions, climate disasters, the slate wiped clean. Scientists have found this pattern hidden in the fossil record. A cosmic clock ticking toward destruction. If intelligence has appeared before on this planet, it would have faced this cycle. Rise and fall again and again across hundreds of millions of years. Are we just the latest attempt? And are we running out of time? But before we begin, do not forget to subscribe. And if you truly enjoy these videos, please leave a like. Let us begin. What if everything you know about human history is wrong? Not slightly off, not missing a few details, but deeply, completely wrong. What if the story we tell ourselves about civilization rising from the mud, inventing the wheel, building the first cities, slowly climbing from wildness to intelligence over 5,000 years is not the whole story? What if it is barely a small piece? A single page torn from a book so huge we cannot even see its edges? This is the question that troubles certain researchers. The question that mainstream archaeology refuses to consider. The question that sounds silly until you start looking at the evidence, and then it sounds frightening. What if we are not the first? What if advanced civilizations have risen on this planet before, built cities, developed technology, created art and music and philosophy, and then disappeared so completely that we cannot even find their bones? What if this has happened not once, but many times? Cycles of rise and fall stretching back millions of years. And what if we are simply the latest attempt? The newest children waking up in a house we do not remember building, playing with tools we do not understand, walking on ground that has swallowed empires we will never know existed. What if humanity is a species with amnesia? The idea sounds like science fiction. It sounds like the talk of conspiracy thinkers and ancient alien fans. And for decades, that is exactly how it was treated. Fringe speculation, not worthy of serious scientific study, but something changed in 2018. Something that gave this strange idea a respectable name and a peer-reviewed paper in an academic journal. Something that made even doubtful scientists stop and think about ideas they had rejected their entire careers. In April of that year, 2 scientists published a paper in the International Journal of Astrobiology. One was Gavin Schmidt, director of the NASA Goddard Institute for Space Studies. The other was Adam Frank, an astrophysicist at the University of Rochester. These were not eccentrics. These were not conspiracy thinkers. These were serious researchers with strong credentials asking a question that had never been asked in a formal scientific way. Could we detect an industrial civilization in the geological record if one had existed millions of years before our own? They called it the Silurian hypothesis. The name was taken from a 1970 episode of the British television series Doctor Who, which showed a race of intelligent reptiles who had built an advanced civilization on Earth long before humans evolved. The scientists chose the name on purpose, a small joke to admit the speculative nature of their question. But the paper itself was very serious. It was a careful study of what signs an industrial society might leave behind. And the conclusions were disturbing. The problem Schmidt and Frank explained is time. Deep time, geological time, the kind of time that erases everything. Modern humans have existed for about 300,000 years. Industrial civilization has existed for about 300 years. That is 1/10,000th of 1% of the time complex life has existed on Earth. A blink inside a blink inside a blink. 400 million years ago, the first plants moved onto land. Since then, Earth has had enough organic material to support an industrial civilization. Enough time for one to rise and fall. Enough time for 1,000 to rise and fall. The question is not whether there was enough time. The question is whether we would know. Think about what happens to a city over 10 million years. First, the buildings fall down. The steel rusts. The concrete breaks apart. Rivers change direction and bury everything under layers of sediment. Tectonic plates move and sink, pulling the ruins into the mantle where they melt and are recycled. Ice ages scrape the continents. Oceans rise and fall. Mountains are pushed up and worn away. After 10 million years, there would be nothing left of New York or Tokyo or London. Not a single brick, not a single foundation. The geological record would show no sign these places ever existed. This is the serious reality of deep time. We assume that if an advanced civilization had existed, we would find its cities, its roads, its monuments. But we would not. Fossilization is extremely rare. Less than 1/10 of 1% of all species that have ever lived have left any fossil trace at all. And tools are even rarer. Bones at least are organic and can turn to stone under the right conditions. Steel and glass and plastic do not fossilize. They decay, they rust. They break down into smaller molecules and spread out. After a few million years, there would be nothing to find. But Schmidt and Frank noticed something important. An industrial civilization would not only leave tools behind, it would change the planet itself. It would dig up fossil fuels and burn them, releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. It would mine rare metals and spread them across the surface in patterns that do not happen naturally. It would create artificial molecules, plastics, pesticides, and industrial chemicals that have never existed in nature. It would change the climate, warm the oceans, and make the water more acidic. These changes would leave marks in the geological record, not objects, but signals, not monuments, but strange patterns. And here is where the Silurian hypothesis becomes truly unsettling. Because we already know about strange signals in the geological record, events that have never been fully explained. Periods of rapid warming, sudden jumps in carbon dioxide, unusual isotope ratios, mass extinctions with no clear cause. Events that scientists have blamed on volcanoes or asteroid impacts or changes in ocean movement. But events that, when viewed through the Silurian hypothesis, begin to look like something else entirely. The most interesting of these is the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, the PETM. It happened about 56 million years ago during the change between two geological periods. Over a time of maybe 20,000 years, global temperatures rose by 5 to 8 degrees Celsius. The oceans warmed, sea levels rose, ecosystems were disturbed all over the world. The event is marked by a sharp drop in carbon isotope ratios, showing a huge release of light carbon into the atmosphere. The same kind of carbon that comes from burning fossil fuels. Scientists have suggested many explanations for this. Volcanic activity in the North Atlantic, methane hydrates releasing from the ocean floor, wildfires burning through ancient peat deposits. All of these are possible. All of them may have played a part, but none of them fully explains how fast and how large the event was. The carbon release was too quick, the isotope signal too unusual. Something happened 56 million years ago that we do not fully understand. Schmidt and Frank are careful to say that they do not believe the event was caused by an ancient industrial civilization. The evidence is not strong enough. The signals do not match exactly, but they point out something important. If a civilization had existed 56 million years ago and released carbon into the atmosphere at the rate we are doing today, the signal in the geological record would look very much like what we see. And after 56 million years, we might not be able to tell the difference. This is the heart of the Silurian hypothesis. Not a claim that past civilizations existed, but a question of how we would know if they did. And the answer is worrying. We probably would not. The geological record is too broken, the time scales too large, the signals too unclear. An industrial civilization could have existed on this planet before humans evolved, and we might never find clear proof. But no evidence does not mean something never happened. And as we look deeper into the mysteries of our planet's past, as we study the strange signs that do not fit simple explanations, we begin to see the shape of something huge and frightening. A pattern of disaster and recovery, rise and fall, civilizations growing and being destroyed again and again across hundreds of millions of years. The question is not whether this happened. The question is whether it is still happening. Whether we are simply the latest version, the newest children of a planet that has created intelligent life before. Children who have forgotten their past. Children who walk through the ruins of their ancestors without knowing they are there. A species with amnesia waking up every few thousand years and starting again from the beginning. In the chapters that follow, we will study the evidence, the scientific papers and the archaeological mysteries, the ancient sites that cannot be explained, and the myths shared across cultures, the cosmic disasters that could have erased entire civilizations and the geological signals they may have left behind. We will look at Göbekli Tepe and Puma Punku, at the Younger Dryas impact and the Tartarian conspiracy, at underwater structures and out-of-place objects, at the cycle of mass extinctions that seems to work like clockwork every 26 million years. We will ask the questions that traditional science refuses to ask. Not because we believe in ancient aliens or lost continents, but because the evidence demands it, because the mysteries are real, because the strange signs exist, and because if we truly are a species with amnesia, the only way to remember is to start looking. The story of human civilization may not begin 5,000 years ago in Mesopotamia. It may begin millions of years earlier, with civilizations we have forgotten, technologies we have lost, wisdom that slipped away when the last disaster struck. We think we are the first. We think we are special. We think the story of intelligence on Earth is our story. We might be wrong. The evidence is waiting in the rocks beneath our feet, in the sediment at the bottom of the ocean, in the strange signs that scientists cannot explain, and the monuments that should not exist. It has been waiting for millions of years, waiting for someone to ask the right questions, waiting for someone to remember. And the first question is this: if an advanced civilization had existed on Earth before humans evolved, what evidence would we expect to find? And do we find it? Let us look deeper. Let us go back. Past the beginning of written history, past the first cities and the first farms, past the ice ages and the megafauna. Back to a time when the world was different. When the stars themselves were in different places, when something happened that changed everything. Back to when the sky fell. Chapter 2. The Silurian Hypothesis and What Science Cannot See. The Earth Remembers. That is the main promise of geology. Every event, every disaster, every slow change over millions of years leaves its mark in rock. Layers of sediment pile up like pages in a book. Ice cores trap bubbles of ancient air. Ocean floors collect the shells of countless creatures, each one a data point recording the chemistry of its time. The planet keeps records. The question is whether we can read them. For Gavin Schmidt and Adam Frank, this was not a thought game. It was a scientific problem. If you want to know whether an industrial civilization existed millions of years ago, you must understand what marks it would leave. You must set the search rules. You must know what to look for. The modern human industrial footprint is, by geological standards, enormous. In 300 years, we have burned enough fossil fuel to change the carbon isotope ratio of the entire atmosphere. We have created molecules that have never existed in nature, plastics and pesticides, and long-lasting pollutants that will remain in sediments for millions of years. We have mined and spread rare elements, concentrating them in patterns that could not happen naturally. We have changed the nitrogen cycle through industrial farming. We have caused thousands of species to go extinct. We have warmed the planet and made the oceans more acidic. All of these changes will leave marks in the geological record. Future geologists, whether they are our descendants or intelligent beings that evolve millions of years from now, will be able to see the Anthropocene, the human age. They will see the rise in carbon dioxide, the layer of plastic particles, the strange piles of rare metals, the extinction layer. The evidence will be clear. But here is the problem. The evidence is clear now. In 10 million years, how much of it will still exist, sending the planet into a sudden freeze? They killed the megafauna, and Schmidt and Frank work through this problem. Plastics are organic materials. They break down. Under the right conditions, they might last for hundreds of thousands of years, maybe even millions. But after 10 million years in sediment, exposed to heat, pressure, and chemical breakdown, they would no longer look like plastic. You might see a carbon signal. You might find strange hydrocarbon patterns, but you would not find plastic. Artificial chemicals face the same issue. Some are very long-lasting. PFAS, called forever chemicals, earn that name because they do not break down on human time scales. But geological time is different. After millions of years, even forever chemicals would break down or be buried so deeply in sinking sediments that they could not be reached. What about metals? Surely an industrial civilization would leave behind piles of copper, iron, and aluminum that we could detect. And yes, it might. Enriched uranium from nuclear reactors would be especially clear. The isotope ratios could not be explained by natural processes. This would be the strongest evidence. If a past civilization had developed nuclear technology, the evidence might still be detectable after millions of years. But what if they had not? What if a past civilization had industrialized but never split the atom? What if they used different energy sources, like geothermal or solar, or technologies we cannot imagine? Then the signs would be weaker. Carbon isotope shifts, temperature anomalies, higher levels of certain metals, exactly the kinds of signals we see in the geological record, and explain as volcanoes or meteor impacts or natural climate cycles. The Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum is the example Schmidt and Frank return to again and again. It is the closest match in the geological record to what we are doing to the planet today. A fast release of carbon, global warming of 5 to 8 degrees, ocean acidification, mass extinction of deep-sea life. The whole event lasted about 200,000 years, with the main carbon release happening over maybe 20,000 years. The cause of the PETM is still debated. The leading idea involves volcanic activity in the North Atlantic, where huge amounts of magma pushed into carbon-rich sediments and heated them, releasing methane and carbon dioxide. Other scientists suggest methane hydrates breaking down on the ocean floor due to warming currents. Others point to the burning of ancient deposits. All of these are natural processes. All of them could explain the evidence. But Schmidt and Frank notice something important. The rate of carbon released during the PETM was about 1 to 2 gigatons per year. Humans today are releasing about 10 gigatons per year. We are warming the planet faster than would ever cause the PETM. Our mark in the geological record will be sharper, clearer, and more obviously artificial. But here is the catch. If a previous civilization had released carbon more slowly than we are, their trace would look more like the PETM, more like a natural event, hard to tell apart from volcanoes or methane hydrate release. They could have existed. They could have industrialized. They could have caused a global warming event, and we would have no way to tell it apart from natural explanations. This is the knowledge trap at the heart of the Silurian hypothesis. The better a civilization controls its environmental impact, the less evidence it leaves behind. A truly sustainable industrial society might leave almost no geological trace at all. They might use renewable energy, recycle materials, and control their emissions. After a few million years, it would be as if they had never existed. On the other hand, a civilization that destroys itself through environmental disaster would leave a clearer signal. The spike in carbon, the mass extinction, the acidified oceans. But that signal would look like many kinds of natural disasters. It would be unclear, debated, and open to the same arguments we have about the PETM. Schmidt and Frank are careful to say that they do not believe the PETM was caused by a previous civilization. The evidence does not support it. The time scales and carbon sources can be explained by natural processes, but they make a more subtle point. We cannot rule it out. The tools we have, the detail of the geological record, the loss of evidence over deep time, all of these work together to make the question unanswerable, at least with current methods. This is not a failure of science. It is an honest admission of the limits of knowledge. Science can tell us what happened. It can piece together the planet's history from fragments and clues, but there are limits to the detail. Details that are lost forever. Events that leave no trace or traces that are impossible to tell apart from other events. The Silurian hypothesis is a thought experiment, a way of asking how we would know what we cannot know. And the answer is humbling. We might not. There is a wide range of possible histories that fit the geological record. Histories where we are the first and histories where we are only the latest. Science cannot tell the difference. But the hypothesis does more than show the limits of knowledge. It also gives a way to look. If we take the possibility seriously, even for now, what would we search for? What strange clues would be worth studying? What patterns in the data might deserve closer attention? Schmidt and Frank suggest several paths to explore. First, look for unusually fast changes in isotopes. Natural processes usually happen slowly. Volcanic carbon release happens over tens of thousands of years. Methane hydrate release follows warming trends, but an industrial civilization might release carbon much faster. A sharp rise over centuries instead of thousands of years would be suspicious. Second, look for strange combinations of signals. Volcanic events leave their own marks: mercury spikes, ash layers, and specific isotope ratios. If you see a carbon spike without the usual volcanic signs, that is worth studying. It might mean the carbon came from a different source, one we have not considered. Third, look for artificial molecules or isotope ratios that natural processes cannot explain. Enriched uranium is the clearest example, but there could be others. Unusual metals, strange mineral mixtures, or element concentrations in patterns that do not match natural deposits. Any of these would be worth studying. Fourth, look at timing. Mass extinctions and warming events are not random. Some scientists have suggested they follow a repeating pattern every 26 to 30 million years. If true, this could point to an outside cause. Perhaps the solar system passing through the galaxy's plane or meeting clouds of comets. But it could also point to something else. A pattern of rise and fall. Civilizations growing, using too many resources, causing disasters, and then disappearing again and again like a clock. This last idea is the most disturbing because, if true, It suggests that industrial civilization is not rare but repeating. Life evolves, intelligence appears, civilizations industrialize, and then something goes wrong. The climate shifts, ecosystems collapse, civilizations fall, and the cycle starts again. We see ourselves as unique, the first technological species, the first to split the atom and reach for the stars. But what if we are not? What if intelligence is common? What if the galaxy is quiet not because life is rare, but because civilizations keep destroying themselves or being destroyed? The PETM is not the only strange event in the geological record. There are others. The Tortian turnover 183 million years ago. The Carnian pluvial event 230 million years ago. The Permian extinction 252 million years ago when 90% of all species died. Each of these events shows fast environmental change, high carbon dioxide, acidic oceans, and rising temperatures. Each has been explained by natural causes, mostly volcanoes, the great igneous provinces that erupted across the planet at these times. But the pattern is striking. Large igneous provinces often line up with mass extinctions in an uncanny way, and the carbon release linked to them sometimes seems too fast, too focused, as if something besides volcanoes was involved. This is speculation. Schmidt and Frank would say so first. The evidence for natural causes is strong. The evidence for artificial causes is not there, but that is the point. We do not have the tools to see what we cannot see. We are looking through dark glass. The geological record is incomplete. The clues are damaged. The uncertainties are huge. The Silurian hypothesis does not say past civilizations existed. It says we cannot know if they did. And it asks us to think about what that uncertainty means. Because if there is even a small chance that civilizations rose and fell on Earth before us, then we must ask why. What destroyed them? And whether we are heading for the same end. The answer may be in the sky, in the cosmic forces that sometimes reshape Earth, in impacts, eruptions, and disasters that move through the solar system like storms. In the event 12,800 years ago at the end of the last ice age, when something hit Earth and changed human history. The event that mainstream science is only now starting to accept. The event that independent researchers have pointed to for decades. The event that may have erased a civilization and pushed humanity back into the Stone Age. The Younger Dryas impact when the sky fell. Chapter 3. When the sky fell 12,800 years ago, the world was warming. The huge ice sheets that had covered much of North America and Europe for 100,000 years were melting. Glaciers pulled back, sea levels rose, forests spread north into lands that had been frozen tundra. The megafauna roamed, mammoths, mastodons, and giant ground sloths. Animals that had survived earlier warm times and seemed likely to survive this one. In North America, a people called the Clovis culture were thriving. They were skilled hunters known for their special spear points, carefully made from stone and shaped with great skill. Their tools spread across the continent, from the Atlantic to the Pacific, from Canada to Central America. They hunted large animals. They gathered plants. They were the main human culture in the Americas, and then something happened. In a geological instant, everything changed. Temperatures dropped fast. In some places, the climate cooled by 10 degrees within decades. The warm period ended suddenly and a new cold phase began. It lasted over 1,000 years. Scientists call it the Younger Dryas, named after a flower, Dryas octopetala, that grows in cold conditions and appears often in pollen records from this time. The return to icy conditions was sudden and harsh. At the same time, the Clovis culture disappeared. Their unique spear points vanished from the archaeological record. The people who made them were gone, not changing into new cultures, not moving elsewhere, simply gone. At the same time, the megafauna collapsed. Mammoths, mastodons, giant ground sloths, saber-toothed cats, American horses, American camels. 35 groups of large mammals went extinct in North America. Animals that had survived many ice ages. Animals that had lived alongside human hunters for thousands of years. All gone within a few centuries. What could cause such sudden, shared disasters? Climate change, overhunting, disease. These are the usual ideas, and they may have played a role, but none fully explains how fast and how big the disaster was. The climate had changed before, and the animals survived. Humans had hunted before, and the animals survived. Something else was happening, something new. In 2007, a group of scientists suggested an answer. They called it the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. Their idea was bold. A comet or group of Comets hit Earth 12,800 years ago. The impact started massive fires across North America. They disturbed the ice sheets. They threw dust and debris into the air, blocking sunlight and the Clovis people. They reset the climate and changed human history. The hypothesis was controversial from the start. It challenged decades of accepted ideas. It suggested a disaster without a clear crater. It claimed that human history was shaped by a space event. A claim that sounded too close to ideas from alternative researchers and ancient astronaut fans. But the evidence was strong, and it has only grown stronger in the 17 years since the idea was first proposed. The researchers pointed to a special layer of soil found across North America and later around the world. This layer, dated exactly to 12,800 years ago, contains strange clues that are hard to explain without a space impact. Nanodiamonds, tiny diamond particles that form only under extreme heat and pressure, like those from high-speed impacts. Magnetic spherules, tiny metal balls that form when material melts and cools fast, as happens when objects enter the atmosphere at cosmic speeds. Melt glass, silica heated to over 2,000 degrees Celsius and then cooled quickly, forming special glass shapes. The layer also has high levels of platinum and iridium. These elements are rare on Earth's surface, but common in asteroids and comets. Finding them in a thin soil layer is exactly what you expect from a space impact. The layer also holds carbon, huge amounts of carbon, charcoal, and soot from fires that burned across the land. Studies of soil cores from 152 sites showed a peak in burning at the start of the Younger Dryas. That seems to be the highest in at least the last 50,000 years. About 10% of Earth's plant life may have burned in one massive firestorm. Critics pushed back. They said nanodiamonds can form in other ways. They questioned the dating of the layers. They pointed out there was no crater. But each challenge was answered with new evidence. Independent labs confirmed the nanodiamonds. Different dating methods matched the timing, and the missing crater was explained by the type of impact. The Younger Dryas comet, scientists said, was not one solid rock but a swarm, pieces of a larger object that broke apart, maybe on an earlier trip through the inner solar system. These pieces exploded in the air before hitting the ground, creating airbursts instead of craters. Like the event that flattened forests in Siberia in 1908, but much larger. Many airbursts across a whole continent. Airbursts leave no crater, but they leave clues. Heat and pressure make nanodiamonds, spherules, and melt glass. Shock waves knock down forests and start fires. Debris falls as a thin layer over huge areas. In 2018, the idea gained strong support. Scientists announced a 31-kilometer-wide crater under the Hiawatha Glacier in Greenland. It had been hidden by ice for thousands of years. Dating suggested it formed near the end of the last ice age. It was the clear proof critics wanted. The crater is still being studied. Its exact age is not confirmed, but it shows that large impacts happened in recent geological history. And if one happened, others could have happened too. The Younger Dryas impact idea no longer needed to explain a missing crater. One had been found. The meaning is huge. If the idea is right, a space disaster shaped the end of the Ice Age. It killed the megafauna. It ended the Clovis culture. It caused 1,000 years of climate chaos. And it may have done something even bigger. Graham Hancock, a writer and alternative researcher, suggests the Younger Dryas did more than end the Ice Age. It ended a civilization. Not simple hunter-gatherers, but an advanced society that lived before the disaster. Survivors spread across the world, bringing knowledge to later peoples who remembered them as gods. Most archaeologists reject this idea. They say there is no proof of an advanced civilization at the end of the Ice Age. The Clovis people were skilled but not advanced. They had no cities, no writing, no giant buildings. But lack of proof is not proof of nothing. And there is one place where giant building does appear. Right at the end of the Younger Dryas, a site so strange and unexpected that it forces us to rethink everything we know about civilization's beginnings. Göbekli Tepe. The site sits on a hill in southeastern Turkey near the Syrian border. It was found in 1963 by a Turkish-American team who thought it was a medieval graveyard. For 30 years, it was left alone. Then in 1994, German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt visited. He knew right away it was something else. When digging began, he found the oldest known monumental buildings in the world. The structures at Göbekli Tepe are circles of huge T-shaped stone pillars. Some weigh 20 tons. They are carved with detailed images of animals, lions, foxes, scorpions, vultures, snakes. The skill is high, the size is massive, and the date makes no sense. Carbon dating puts the first building around 950 BCE, about 11,500 years ago at the end of the Younger Dryas, before pottery, before farming, before anything we usually call civilization. Traditional archaeology says big stone buildings need settled farming societies. You need extra food to feed workers. You need organization to plan the work. You need specialists and leaders. Hunter-gatherers do not build temples. They do not carve 20-ton stones with fine art. They do not build places that take centuries to complete. And yet, there it is. Göbekli Tepe, the oldest temple in the world built by people who should not have been able to build it. Klaus Schmidt offered another idea. He said building sacred places came first, and that building Göbekli Tepe pushed people toward farming. Religion created civilization, not the other way around. But Graham Hancock suggests something else. He says Göbekli Tepe was not the start, but the end. The last effort of a civilization destroyed by the Younger Dryas impact. Survivors trying to save their knowledge in stone before it was lost. The dates support this idea. Göbekli Tepe was built at the end of the Younger Dryas, as the climate warmed again, as the long freeze ended. If a civilization existed before the impact and was destroyed, survivors may have gathered at places like Göbekli Tepe to remember and rebuild. And there is one more detail that is chilling. Göbekli Tepe was not abandoned. It was not destroyed by enemies or time. It was buried on purpose. Around 8,000 BCE, people filled it with tons of soil. They covered the pillars, carvings, and sacred spaces. They sealed it away as if saving it for the future. Why? What were they trying to protect, hide, or remember? The builders of Göbekli Tepe knew things we are only starting to understand. One pillar, called the Vulture Stone, shows a headless human figure, animals, and what looks like the night sky. Scientists say the carvings may record star positions and constellations, and that they may even mark the date of the space impact that ended the Ice Age. If this is true, it would be amazing. It would mean that people 11,000 years ago had advanced knowledge of the stars. Knowledge that was supposed to be developed thousands of years later in Mesopotamia and Egypt. Knowledge that suggests a tradition of watching the sky and keeping records going back into the Younger Dryas and beyond. Göbek is not alone. Other sites in the region are also being dug up. Karahunt. Together they form what Turkish archaeologists call Taş Tepeler, the Stone Hills. A network of huge stone sites dating to the end of the Ice Age. Evidence of an advanced culture that lived in Anatolia 12,000 years ago. A culture that traditional archaeology cannot explain. The Younger Dryas impact theory gives one possible explanation. A space disaster destroyed an earlier age of human achievement. Survivors saved what they could, and over thousands of years that knowledge was lost. The monuments fell apart or were buried. The stories turned into myths. History became legend until we forgot that any of it had ever happened. We are a species with memory loss. That is what Graham Hancock says. We have forgotten our past, not the past of the last 5,000 years that archaeologists study. The deep past, the past of the Ice Age and before. The past that was erased by fire from the sky. The proof is there for those willing to look. In the soil layers with their tiny diamonds and spheres. In the crater under the ice of Greenland. In the bones of the megafauna that died all at once. In the empty camps of the Clovis people. In the impossible temples of Göbekli Tepe. Something happened 12,800 years ago. Something that changed the world. Something that we are only now starting to remember. And it may not have been the first time. The geological record shows cycles of disaster going back millions of years. Every 26 million years on average, something terrible happens. Mass extinctions, climate changes, the reset button pressed again and again. If civilizations have risen and fallen before, if the Silurian hypothesis has any value, then the Younger Dryas impact might be just one example of a repeating pattern. A pattern we forgot, a pattern we may be forced to repeat. But the proof for earlier civilizations is not only in rocks and star alignments. There are physical remains too. Structures that should not exist, technologies that appear too early, objects that resist explanation, the impossible accuracy of Puma Punku, the advanced engineering of the Antikythera mechanism, the underwater ruins off the coast of Japan. Let us study the stones, the precision in stone that should not be possible, the monuments that seem to remember knowledge we have lost. Chapter 4. The temples before history stand on the top of Göbek and look out across the Heron Plain. The land stretches away in every direction, brown and dry, broken by green strips of watered fields. To the south lies Syria. To the east are the sources of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. This is the northern arc of the Fertile Crescent, the region where civilization is said to have begun, where humans first grew wheat and barley and raised sheep and goats, where the first villages became the first cities, where history began. Except that history began here earlier, before the cities, before the villages, before farming itself. 12,000 years ago, when the world was still coming out of the Ice Age, when huge glaciers were melting and seas were rising, and the climate was changing in ways that must have felt like the end of the world, someone built a temple on this hill. Not a small shrine, not a simple stone circle, but a complex of massive stone buildings that would not be matched for thousands of years. T-shaped pillars carved from single blocks of limestone, some weighing 20 tons, set in perfect circles and joined by stone walls. The pillars are not rough or simple. They are smooth, carved with detailed pictures of animals and symbols, made with a level of skill that needs planning, knowledge, and teamwork. The effort alone is shocking. The limestone had to be cut from solid rock hundreds of meters away. The blocks had to be shaped at the quarry, then moved up the hill, then set in exact places, then carved with fine images. This needs tools and methods, organization and leaders, a group of workers who must be fed, housed, and guided. All the systems of a complex society. But according to traditional archaeology, complex societies did not exist 12,000 years ago. The people of that time were hunter-gatherers. They followed animals and collected wild plants. They lived in small groups and moved with the seasons. They did not have the social structure to build huge monuments. They did not have extra food to support special workers. They did not build temples. Klaus Schmidt, the archaeologist who dug Göbekli Tepe from 1995 until his death in 2014, suggested a bold new idea. Maybe, he said, we have the story backward. Maybe the need to build holy places came first. Maybe building Göbekli Tepe took so much effort that it led to the start of farming. People had to stay in one place to build. They needed steady food to feed the workers. They began growing plants and herding animals not because they found a better way to live, but because they needed to support a huge project. This would mean that religion created civilization, not the other way around. That the first cities grew around temples instead of temples growing inside cities. That the spark of human progress was spiritual, not material. It is a powerful idea and it explains some strange things at Göbekli Tepe, but it does not explain everything. Look at the skill level. The carvings on the pillars are not simple or clumsy. They are confident and expert. The animals are shown with correct body shapes and artistic style. The designs show a deep understanding of space and balance. This is not the work of beginners. This is the work of a long tradition, a group of skilled builders passing knowledge down through generations. Where did that tradition begin? If Göbekli Tepe is the first great stone building, then we should see learning over time. Early work should be rough, later work more polished. But that is not what we find. The oldest layers at Göbekli Tepe, the earliest building stages, show the most advanced work. The pillars in Layer 3, dated to about 960 BCE, are bigger and more detailed than those built later. The skill seems to fade over time instead of improve. This is backward. This is not how skills usually grow, unless the tradition did not start at Göbekli Tepe, unless it came from somewhere else. From an earlier age of achievement that was already fading when Göbekli Tepe was built. Think about the star knowledge. Several researchers have studied the images at Göbekli Tepe and believe they show references to the sky. The vulture stone, pillar 43 in enclosure D, has been studied the most. It shows a vulture with a disc above its wing, a headless human shape, a scorpion, and other animals. Martin Sweatman and Dimitrios Tsakritsis from the University of Edinburgh published a paper in 2017 saying the animals match star patterns, and that the layout marks a date, the date of the Younger Dryas impact around 10,950 BCE. Most archaeologists doubt this. The star matches may be guesses. The star explanation may be putting modern ideas onto ancient art. The dating is uncertain, but the idea is exciting. If the builders of Göbekli Tepe were recording star events, that suggests careful sky watching we do not expect from hunter-gatherers. It suggests record-keeping over many generations. It suggests a worldview advanced enough to follow stars and link them to disasters on Earth. Now consider the burial. Around 8000 BCE, about 2000 years after building began, the people using Göbekli Tepe filled it in. They did not abandon it. They did not let it slowly fall apart. They purposely buried it under tons of stone and soil. Every circle, every pillar, every carving was covered and hidden. Why? What were they trying to do? Were they sealing something holy, protecting it from harm, saving it for future people who might need its knowledge? Or were they hiding something they feared? Memories of disaster, warnings for the future, secrets too dangerous to leave open. The burial is why Göbekli Tepe is so well preserved. The soil protected the stones from weather. The carvings are nearly as sharp as the day they were made. It is as if the site was placed in a time capsule, sealed 11,000 years ago and opened in our time. A message from before history, proof of something we forgot. Göbekli Tepe is not alone. In the years since its importance was known, more sites have been found in the same area. The Taş Tepeler project, led by Turkish archaeologists, is mapping a network of Neolithic sites across southeastern Anatolia. Karahantepe, Harbitsuvan, Sefertep, Bonkuklu Tarla. Each site shows huge stone buildings from the end of the Ice Age. Each raises the same questions about what pre-farming societies could do. Karahantepe is especially striking. About 35 kilometers from Göbekli Tepe, it has similar T-shaped pillars, but with major differences. Some pillars show human figures, hands, arms, fingers, faces, and expressions. The site includes an amazing underground chamber with 11 pillars in a half circle, centered on one huge pillar with a carved human head. The feeling is eerie, like entering a holy place waiting for visitors for 11,000 years. At Sefertep, digs have found a shared building with benches along the walls and carved panels showing leopards and humans. The images suggest rituals, meetings, ceremonies, and a religious life more complex than expected for that time. Together, these sites show that the Taş Tepeler region was a cultural center at the end of the Ice Age, a place where people came together to build great structures and practice advanced rituals, a place where knowledge was kept and passed on, a place that may help us understand what came before. But the mystery goes beyond Anatolia. Around the world, there are sites that do not fit the usual timeline, buildings that seem too old, technologies that seem too advanced, signs of abilities that should not exist based on what we think we know. The Sphinx at Giza. Traditional dating says it was built about 450 years ago under the pharaohs. But the Sphinx shows erosion that some geologists say could only come from long periods of heavy rain. Rain that has not fallen in Egypt since the end of the last Ice Age. If this is right, the Sphinx could be 7,000 years old or more. It could be far older than ancient Egypt itself. The accuracy of the Great Pyramid. The biggest and oldest pyramid at Giza is also the most precise. Its base is level within 2 centimeters over more than 230 meters. Its sides line up with true north with accuracy within tiny fractions of a degree. Inside are granite blocks weighing up to 80 tons, cut and placed with accuracy that would be hard to match today. How did a Bronze Age society do this? Where did the knowledge come from? The underwater structures off the coast of India. In 2002, a sea survey near Gujarat found what looked like a sunken city. Stone walls, regular shapes, objects including pottery and human bones. The site lies under water that rose at the end of the last Ice Age. If these structures were made by humans, they must be older than the flooding. They must be over 9,000 years old. Each of these sites is debated. Each has other explanations. The Sphinx erosion might come from different causes. The pyramid precision might come from careful trial and error. The underwater shapes might be natural rocks mistaken for buildings. Traditional archaeology has answers for each case, but the strange cases keep adding up, and when viewed together, a pattern appears. A pattern of advanced knowledge appearing earlier than expected. A pattern of huge building projects by societies that should not have been able to do them. A pattern suggesting we are missing something basic about human history. The standard story says this. Humans lived as hunter-gatherers for hundreds of thousands of years. Then about 10,000 years ago, they settled down. They farmed plants and animals. They built villages that became cities. They created writing, math, and astronomy. Civilization began in Mesopotamia and spread outward. But Göbekli Tepe does not fit this story. Neither do the other Taş Tepeler sites. Neither do the underwater ruins, the weathered Sphinx, or the precise pyramids. They suggest advanced culture began earlier than we think. That knowledge survived disasters. That history has been reset more than once. This is the other story. Civilization did not begin only 5,000 years ago. It began earlier, maybe many times, and each time it was destroyed by climate change, space impacts, or collapse from within. The survivors carried what they could into the next age. They built monuments to save their knowledge. They told stories that became myths, and over time the knowledge faded until we forgot we ever had it. We are a species with memory loss. We think we know our history. We think we know where we came from. But our memory only goes back a few thousand years. Beyond that is darkness, broken pieces, signs of something huge we can barely see. Göbekli Tepe is a window into that darkness, a glimpse of what we forgot. And it forces us to ask a question we cannot ignore. If advanced civilization existed before the younger Dryas, how advanced was it? What did they know? What could they do? The answer may be found in another group of mysteries. Not temples but technology, not monuments but machines. Objects that seem too advanced for their supposed age. Accuracy that should not be possible. Engineering that cannot be easily explained. The perfectly cut stones of Pumapunku. The blocks that lock together like modern factory-made parts. The drilled holes and sharp angles that look machine-made, not hand-carved. Let us study the stones. Chapter 5. Precision in Stone. The air is thin at 12,800 feet. Every step takes effort. Every breath is short. This is the Altiplano, the high plain of Bolivia, one of the harshest places where humans have ever built. And yet spread across this windy land near Lake Titicaca are the remains of something amazing. Pumapunku, the door of the Puma. A site that has confused archaeologists and engineers for hundreds of years. A collection of huge stone blocks cut with a level of accuracy that seems impossible for the tools believed to exist at the time. A mystery held in the cold, thin air of the Andes. The usual date for Pumapunku is about 500 to 600 CE. It was part of the larger Tiwanaku complex, the center of a civilization that ruled the central Andes for hundreds of years before collapsing around 1000 CE. The Tiwanaku people were skilled builders. They made temples, pyramids, and smart water systems. They created farming methods that worked at high altitude. They were impressive by any standard. But Pumapunku is different. The stones here are not only big, they are cut with exactness that is hard to explain. Walk among the ruins and you will see blocks of red sandstone and harder gray stone spread across the ground. Many are broken. Earthquakes and looters have caused damage over time. But even the broken pieces show incredible skill. Look at the surfaces. They are flat, not almost flat, but perfectly flat. Modern engineers have measured differences of less than 1 millimeter across surfaces several feet wide. This is precision machining. This is the kind of accuracy we achieve today with power tools and laser levels. The Tiwanaku had neither. Look at the angles. 90 degrees. Perfect right angles repeated across dozens of blocks. Inside corners that are sharp and clean, not rounded by hand chiseling. Not guessed through slow work but precise as if cut by machine. Look at the drill holes. Some blocks have rows of holes drilled into them. The holes are the same size. They are evenly spaced. They are the same depth. Modern machinists recognize this pattern. It suggests jigs and fixtures, templates that keep things consistent, the kind of standardization you see in industrial manufacturing. Look at the H blocks. These are the most famous features of Pumapunku. Blocks shaped like the letter H with sticking out flanges and carved channels. The measurements are standardized. Different blocks have the same sizes. They were made to lock together like parts in a modular building system. Like ancient Lego, like pre-made building materials from a modern factory. The H blocks fit together with amazing precision. The joints are so tight that you cannot slide a razor blade between them. No mortar was used, no glue, just stone fit to stone with tolerances that would be hard to achieve today. How did the Tiwanaku do this? They had no metal tools harder than bronze. They had no wheeled vehicles to move the huge stones. They had no writing to record their methods. Based on everything we know about their technology, they should not have been able to reach this level of precision. Many explanations have been suggested. Maybe they used bronze saws with gritty sand to cut the stone. This is possible, but it would take an enormous amount of time and effort for each cut. Maybe they used pounding and grinding methods, slowly wearing the stone away. This is also possible, but it does not easily explain the uniform results across many blocks. Some researchers suggest that the Tiwanaku used a method to soften stone. Plant extracts that temporarily made the rock soft. Then the blocks could be shaped like clay and would harden when the treatment faded. This sounds unbelievable, but similar stories appear in Spanish colonial accounts of Andean stonework. The Spanish conquistadors reportedly asked local people how such precise work was done. The answer was that their ancestors had a plant that could dissolve stone. The knowledge was lost. Other researchers suggest that the blocks are not carved stone at all, but a type of geopolymer concrete, a mix of calcium and silicates that could be poured into molds and would harden into stone that looks natural. This would explain the uniformity and precision, but studies of the blocks have not found binding materials typical of concrete. The chemistry points to natural stone, not man-made material. The mystery remains. Pumapunku shows a level of precision that we cannot explain using the known technology of its builders. Either they had techniques we have not found, or they received knowledge from an earlier civilization that developed more advanced methods, or our dating and understanding of the site are deeply wrong. Alternative researchers point to Pumapunku as proof of a lost technological civilization, a culture that reached industrial abilities long before the Tiwanaku, maybe long before written history. The precision stones are objects from this lost time. The Tiwanaku found them and built around them, or they inherited broken knowledge and tried to copy techniques they no longer fully understood. Mainstream archaeologists reject this idea. They say the precision, while impressive, can be explained by careful, skilled work. Ancient craftsmen had time. They had purpose. They built skills over generations of practice. What seems impossible to us was simply the result of expertise we no longer have. Both ideas have problems. The mainstream view struggles to explain the extreme consistency across so many blocks. The alternative view struggles to explain why an advanced civilization left no other signs of its technology. No tools, no workshops, no written records, only stones. Maybe the answer is about perspective. We look at Pumapunku with modern eyes and see impossibility. We think precision needs machines. We forget that humans can do amazing things when driven by strong purpose. But even then, even allowing for the greatest ability of determined ancient builders, Pumapunku remains unusual. The mix of size, precision, and standardization is unique. Nothing else in the ancient Americas compares. Nothing else from the ancient world compares except a few places in Egypt and the Mediterranean. And that creates more questions. If this level of precision was possible, why did it appear in only a few places? Why are there not more sites showing similar abilities? Why does the technology seem to appear fully formed and then disappear, leaving no clear descendants? The pattern suggests not slow growth, but transfer, knowledge coming from somewhere else, from an earlier culture or an outside civilization that taught techniques that were later poorly preserved. The precision at Pumapunku is not the peak of a local tradition. It is an exception, a high point surrounded by simpler work, as if the knowledge was borrowed instead of developed. We see similar patterns elsewhere. At Sacsayhuaman near Cusco, huge polygonal stones fit together with joints so tight that the methods are still debated. At Ollantaytambo, stones weighing 50 tons were moved from a quarry 6 km away and fit together with bronze clamps poured into carved channels. At Tiahuanaco, the city next to Pumapunku, the gateway of the sun is carved from one block of andesite with symbols that have never been fully understood. The Inca, who inherited these sites from earlier cultures, told the Spanish they did not build them. The structures were already there when they arrived. They were built by the gods in one night or by giants in a time before time. The Inca were proud of their own work, but they did not claim these sites. They knew that someone else, someone older, someone different had been there first. Maybe the Inca were just being humble, or maybe they were telling the truth as they understood it. Maybe there really was an earlier civilization in the Andes, a culture that reached abilities beyond what the Inca could repeat. A culture that was destroyed, declined, or slowly forgot its own knowledge over many centuries before the Inca appeared. The younger Dryas impact may explain how. About 12,800 years ago, a cosmic disaster hit Earth. If advanced cultures existed in the Americas before then, they could have been wiped out. Survivors would have carried pieces of knowledge into the new age. Over thousands of years, that knowledge would fade. What was once understood would become ritual. What was once technology would seem like magic. By the time the Tiwanaku rose, only traces remained. Methods without understanding, precision without knowing how it was done. This is speculation. There is no direct proof of an advanced pre-Younger Dryas civilization in the Americas. The earliest confirmed humans in South America date to about 15,000 years ago. And those people were hunters and gatherers, not builders of monuments. But timelines keep changing. New sites continue pushing the dates earlier, and the precision at Pumapunku is still unexplained. The stones sit in the thin air, quiet and mysterious. They have survived earthquakes, looters, and the rise and fall of empires. They will outlast us too. And whatever secrets they hold, they are not telling. But Pumapunku is not the only object that seems too advanced for its time. Around the world, in museums and archaeological sites, there are objects that do not fit. Technologies that appear too early, devices that seem impossible based on what we know of their makers. The most famous one sits in a museum in Athens, a rusty lump of bronze gears that sank with a Roman ship 2,000 years ago. A device so advanced that nothing like it would be made for another 1,000 years. A machine that should not exist. The Antikythera mechanism, the first computer. The artifact that shows ancient technology was far more advanced than we thought. Chapter 6, The Tartarian Dream and the Mud Flood Myth. There is a story spreading online, a story that says everything we know about recent history is wrong, not ancient history, not the far past of ice ages and lost civilizations. Recent history, the last few hundred years. The story claims that great buildings we credit to 19th century architects were actually built by a much older civilization, that this civilization was purposely removed from history, that a massive mud flood buried cities around the world, that the orphan trains of the late 1800s were actually repopulating empty cities, that photos from the 1800s showing construction are really showing excavation, and that we live in the ruins of a lost empire. This is the Tartarian conspiracy theory, and even though it is clearly false, it shows something important about the human need to find hidden truths. It shows how the search for lost civilizations can mislead people. And it gives a warning for anyone studying real mysteries. Tartary was real. The name appears on European maps from the 15th century onward. It referred to a huge, loosely defined area of Central Asia, stretching from the Caspian Sea to the Pacific Ocean. The name came from the Tatars, Turkic and Mongolic peoples who spread across Asia under Genghis Khan and his descendants. To European mapmakers, Tartary was the unknown East, a land of mystery and legend. As maps improved and borders became clear, Tartary slowly vanished from maps. It was not erased by a plot. It was simply replaced with more accurate names for the regions it included. Russia, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Manchuria. But in modern conspiracy theories, Tartary becomes something else. Not a map label for Central Asia, but a worldwide empire. An advanced civilization that covered continents. A culture that built great structures using lost technologies. Free energy, electricity from the air, wireless power systems. The domes and spires of old buildings were not decoration. They were working antennas collecting energy from the air. Conspiracy believers point to photos, old images of cities with grand buildings, neoclassical structures with columns and pediments, big mansions with fancy decoration, Gilded Age palaces that seem too impressive to be built in a new country. How, they ask, could 19th century Americans have built these buildings? How could a young nation make the old Penn Station in New York, the Singer Building in Manhattan, the Court of Honor at the Chicago World's Fair? These buildings look ancient. They look like they belong in Rome or Paris or Constantinople. They do not look like the work of a country fighting civil wars and settling farmland. The answer, according to the theory, is that Americans did not build them. The buildings were already there. They were made by Tartarians, an earlier civilization destroyed by disaster and erased from history. The survivors or new people who replaced them took over the buildings and made up false histories to explain where they came from. The mud flood is the cause of destruction. According to the theory, sometime in the 1800s, a worldwide disaster dropped huge amounts of mud on cities everywhere. Buildings were buried up to their first floors. The proof, believers say, is in basement windows of old buildings, windows that are now below ground. They were once at street level. The mud buried them. Workers dug out the inside. New streets were built on top of the mud, and the old first floors became basements. There is a small truth wrapped in a lot of nonsense. Many old buildings do have partly buried lower floors, but the reason is simple. Cities raised street levels over time. Chicago famously lifted its streets by several feet in the 1860s to fix drainage problems. Seattle did the same after the Great Fire of 1889. Buildings built before these changes now have first floors below the new street level. This is not proof of a mud flood. It is proof of city engineering. The conspiracy theory takes normal architectural history and turns it into mystery. Photos of construction become photos of digging. Records of building become fake documents. The entire system of historical study, archives, newspapers, personal stories, and physical proof becomes part of a cover-up. Anyone who disagrees is said to be tricked or part of the lie. This is not how real historical study works. Real mysteries leave missing pieces. They show problems that resist easy answers. They raise questions that experts admit even if they cannot solve them. The Tartarian conspiracy does not work like this. It requires hiding massive amounts of evidence. It requires millions of fake documents. It requires generations of scholars to be wrong or lying. It fails basic logic. And yet the theory continues. It spreads online. It attracts people who feel something is wrong with the world, who believe history has been altered, who want secret knowledge to explain their disconnect from modern life. This desire is not foolish. History has been changed. Governments and institutions do hide things. Powerful groups do shape stories. The doubt behind conspiracy thinking is not baseless. It is pointed the wrong way. The Tartarian theory takes real questions and gives false answers. It asks why old buildings are so beautiful while modern ones seem plain. A fair question. The answer involves money, technology, and changing styles, not lost empires. It asks why historical records have gaps and mistakes. Another fair question. The answer is poor documentation and human bias, not deliberate erasing. It asks why we feel cut off from our past. A deep question. The answer involves fast change, broken communities, and lost traditions, not mud floods. The danger of conspiracies like Tartaria is not that a few people believe them. It is that they damage serious study of real mysteries. When researchers ask about Göbekli Tepe or Puma Punku or the younger Dryas impact, they risk being grouped with Tartarian believers. That association makes honest research harder. It gives critics a reason to dismiss all unusual questions as nonsense. This is sad because real mysteries do exist. There are true puzzles in history that deserve study. There are real oddities that archaeology has not fully explained. The Silurian hypothesis is one example. The precision of ancient stonework is another. The sudden rise of advanced culture at the end of the Ice Age is a third. These mysteries do not need worldwide conspiracies to matter. They do not need fake evidence or hidden records. They exist openly in scientific papers, site reports, museum collections, and geological studies. They are mysteries because the evidence does not fit normal explanations, not because the evidence is hidden. The difference between real investigation and conspiracy theory is how they treat evidence. Real investigation follows the evidence. It suggests ideas and tests them with new data. It changes when facts demand it. It admits uncertainty and accepts criticism. Conspiracy theory does the opposite. It starts with an answer and forces all evidence to fit. Opposing evidence becomes proof of a cover-up. Criticism becomes proof of control. The theory cannot be tested or disproven. The Tartarian conspiracy cannot be disproven. No amount of proof can end it because all opposing proof can be dismissed as fake. This is not how knowledge advances. This is how false beliefs continue. But there is something worth saving from the Tartarian idea. The feeling that something is not right. The sense that history has more in it than we are told. The feeling that amazing achievements have been forgotten and simple explanations have replaced wonderful truths. This feeling is correct. Just not in the way conspiracy thinkers imagine. There are lost civilizations, not Tartaria, but older cultures whose achievements we are only starting to understand. There are hidden truths, not about 19th century buildings, but about how deep and advanced human history was before the Bronze Age. There are amazing structures that are hard to explain, not because they were built by a secret empire, but because we underestimated what ancient people could do. The truth is stranger than the Tartarian conspiracy, and it is supported by evidence, not weakened by it. Consider the Antikythera mechanism, a real artifact, a real mystery, a device so advanced that nothing like it would exist for more than 1,000 years after it was made. Not a conspiracy theory, but a real object sitting in a museum in Athens. Proof that ancient technology was more advanced than we thought. Evidence that knowledge can be lost and civilizations can decline. A window into what we have forgotten. The Tartarian believers are looking in the wrong place. The lost civilization they want is not hidden in 19th century photos. It is hidden in the deep past, in sediment layers and archaeological sites and objects pulled up from shipwrecks 2,000 years old. Let us study the machine that should not exist. Chapter 7. The Machine Out of Time. In the spring of 1900, a storm pushed a boat of Greek sponge divers to shelter near the small island of Antikythera. When the weather cleared, they dove for sponges in the nearby waters. What they found instead changed our understanding of ancient technology forever. One diver came back to the surface in panic, talking wildly about a pile of dead, naked people on the seafloor. His captain, thinking the man was sick from too much nitrogen, dove down to see for himself. What he found was not bodies, but statues. Bronze and marble figures, arms reaching out of the sediment, eyes staring into the darkness. The remains of a Roman cargo ship that had sunk 2,000 years earlier. The Greek government organized an excavation. Divers worked for months bringing up treasures, bronze statues of incredible quality, glassware, jewelry, furniture, fittings, amphorae, the most important group of ancient artifacts ever recovered from a shipwreck at that time. Among the objects was a plain lump of corroded bronze about the size of a large dictionary. It was not pretty. It was not clearly valuable. It was labeled as item 11,587 and placed in storage at the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. For decades it sat there, mostly ignored while experts studied the more dramatic finds. Then in 1902, an archaeologist noticed something strange. The lump had cracked open, showing tiny gear wheels inside, bronze gears with triangle teeth, carefully cut, clearly mechanical. Nothing like this had ever been found from the ancient world. The discovery was so strange that many experts refused to believe it. Surely the gears were added later. Surely the object was identified wrong. Surely there was an explanation that did not mean rewriting the history of technology. Ancient Greeks did not make precision gears. Ancient Greeks did not build complex machines. This was believed, but the evidence was clear. The gears were not added later. They were fully corroded, fused with the rest of the object, clearly the same age as the shipwreck. Radiocarbon dating and study of the ship's cargo later placed the sinking around 70 BCE. The mechanism was even older, possibly from the 2nd century BCE, 2,000 years old. A precision instrument from the height of the Hellenistic world. What was it? What did it do? These questions would puzzle researchers for 100 years. The breakthrough came from Derek de Solla Price, a British physicist who began studying the mechanism in the 1950s. After 20 years of research using X-rays and careful study, he published his results. The Antikythera mechanism was an astronomical computer, a hand-cranked device that could calculate the positions of the sun, moon, and planets. A machine for predicting eclipses and tracking calendars, the most advanced technological artifact to survive from ancient times. Price titled his paper Gears from the Greeks. The title showed the amazement. We knew the Greeks understood astronomy. We knew they were good at math, but we did not know they could build machines like this. The Antikythera mechanism was not simple. It had at least 30 interlocking gears arranged in a complex system that turned one handle into many results at the same time. It modeled the uneven motion of the moon using a clever pin-and-slot system. It tracked the 19-year metonic cycle and the 223-month Saros cycle for predicting eclipses. It was, in effect, an analog computer. Nothing like it would be built in Europe for over 1,000 years. The next machines this complex were the astronomical clocks in medieval cathedrals built in the 14th century. The Antikythera mechanism came 1,500 years earlier. It is a technological orphan, an object with no known ancestors and no known descendants. A machine that appears fully formed in history and then disappears without a trace. How did the Greeks build it? Why did the technology not survive? What other devices existed that we have never found? Modern imaging technology has revealed more details. In 2005, a team used high-resolution X-ray computed tomography to scan the remaining pieces. They found writing that had been invisible before. Thousands of tiny Greek letters explaining how to use the device, instructions for an ancient computer. The writing mentioned all 5 planets visible to the naked eye: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. The front of the mechanism likely showed their positions, showing where they would appear in the zodiac. This required modeling very complex planetary motion. The Greeks knew that planets did not move at steady speeds. They sped up and slowed down. They even seemed to move backward in the sky during retrograde motion. The mechanism showed all of this using mechanical parts. Rebuilding the mechanism is still ongoing. Researchers have suggested different models for how the planetary display worked. The latest reconstructions include dozens of extra gears that no longer survive in the fragments. If these models are right, the original mechanism was even more advanced than the remaining pieces suggest. A marvel of engineering that matched 18th century clockwork. Who made it? We do not know for sure. Ancient writings mention similar devices. Cicero, the Roman speaker, described a machine built by Archimedes that showed the movements of the sun, moon, and planets. This description fits what we know about the Antikythera mechanism. Perhaps Archimedes himself or his students in Syracuse developed the technology. The ship carrying the mechanism was traveling from the eastern Mediterranean toward Rome. It may have been carrying Greek treasures as loot or trade goods. The mechanism could have been a special gift, a wonder of the ancient world meant for a Roman leader. But wherever it came from, the mechanism proved something important. Ancient technology was more advanced than we thought. Precision engineering existed 2,000 years ago. Complex machines were being built and used, and this knowledge was lost. The Antikythera mechanism is not just an artifact, it is a warning. It shows that technological progress is not guaranteed. That knowledge can disappear. That entire engineering traditions can vanish without leaving children behind. How did this happen? How did the Greeks build precision gears in the 2nd century BCE and then lose the skill? How did Europe go more than 1,000 years before anything similar appeared again? The answer likely involves the fall of the Roman Empire and the breakdown of education and economic systems that supported skilled work. When the empire collapsed, the trade and support networks that kept specialized workshops alive collapsed too. The people who knew how to cut gears died without teaching students. The books that explained the ideas were lost or destroyed. The tradition ended. This is not just ancient history. This is a pattern. Civilizations rise and create advanced technology. Then they fall, and the technology disappears with them. The Antikythera mechanism survived only by chance. It sank on a ship and stayed preserved in the cold, dark Mediterranean Sea for 2,000 years. If the ship had reached land, the mechanism would have been used until it broke or melted down. We would have no physical proof it ever existed. Only written mentions by Cicero and others, which experts might have dismissed as exaggeration or myth. How many other technologies have been lost? How many devices once existed that we know nothing about because none survived? The Antikythera mechanism is one data point. It suggests a level of technology that was probably common in the Hellenistic world. There were likely workshops making similar devices, schools teaching the needed math and engineering, a tradition of mechanical astronomy that lasted for centuries. All of it gone. So completely lost that when the mechanism was discovered, experts did not believe it was real. This is what it means to be a species with amnesia. We forget not only events but abilities, not only history but knowledge. The Greeks could make precision gears. We forgot. We had to relearn the skills more than 1,000 years later. If this can happen in 2,000 years, what about longer times? What about 10,000 years? What about 100,000 years? The Silurian hypothesis asks whether industrial civilizations could have existed millions of years ago. But we do not need to go back that far to find lost technology. We can go back 2,000 years and find machines that should not exist. The Antikythera mechanism is proof of idea. Proof that advanced technology can be created and then lost. Proof that our ideas about what ancient people could do are often wrong. Proof that the past is stranger than we imagine. And if the Greeks could build devices we did not expect, what about older cultures? What about the builders of Göbekli Tepe? What about cultures before the Younger Dryas? What about unknown people who may have left signs in the geological record that we cannot understand? The mechanism in Athens is a reminder. Do not assume you know what ancient people could do. Do not assume that missing evidence means something never existed. Do not assume that history is a straight line of progress from simple to advanced. Sometimes knowledge is gained, and sometimes it is lost. Sometimes civilizations rise, and sometimes they fall so completely that only pieces remain. Rusted lumps pulled from the sea. Carved stones scattered on high plateaus. Underwater structures seen through cloudy water. Speaking of that, the Antikythera mechanism is not the only strange artifact pulled from the sea. All over the world, beneath the waves, lie structures that challenge our view of the past. Stone shapes that look man-made, walls, steps, and platforms drowned since the end of the Ice Age. The Drowned Cities Under the Waves, Chapter 8. The drowned cities under the waves, the sea keeps secrets. Beneath the waves is a world we are only starting to explore. A world where the past is saved in ways impossible on land, where structures that would have worn away or been destroyed still survive in the cold darkness, where proof of human history waits for divers to find it. We have mapped Mars' surface in more detail than the floor of our own oceans. Less than 20% of the seafloor has been studied closely. Huge areas remain unknown, and in shallow coastal waters where human societies once lived, countless treasures lie buried under sediment. At the end of the last ice age, sea levels were over 100 meters lower than today. Coastlines looked different. Land bridges connected islands to continents. Entire areas that are now underwater were once dry land, livable land, land where people could live and build. If civilizations existed before the ice age ended, their coastal settlements would now be underwater. Their cities and ports would be submerged. The proof we want for lost cultures may be resting on continental shelves covered in sand and coral, waiting to be found. The Yonaguni Monument is the most famous example, found in 1986 by a diver near Yonaguni Island in Japan. It looks like a huge step structure carved from sandstone rock. The formation is 100 meters long, 60 meters wide, and 25 meters tall. It has flat terraces, sharp angles, and shapes that look like stairs and ramps. At first look, it seems like a pyramid, something built by humans. Masaki Kimura, a marine geologist at the University of the Ryukyus, has studied the site for decades. He believes it is man-made. He points out features he thinks are roads, walls, a stadium, and the bases of castles and temples. He dates it to about 10,000 years ago, when sea levels were lower and the structure would have been above water. If Kimura is right, the Yonaguni Monument would be one of the oldest large structures in the world. Older than Göbekli Tepe, older than anything we usually connect with civilization. It would show that advanced cultures lived in Japan at the end of the Ice Age. Cultures able to build huge projects, cultures we know nothing about, but not everyone agrees. Robert Schoch, a geologist from Boston University who has also studied the site, believes it is natural. He explains that sandstone breaks along natural lines. Flat surfaces and right angles can form through erosion along these breaks. Similar shapes exist on the nearby coast and are clearly natural. The Yonaguni Monument may simply be underwater rock that looks artificial to human eyes that like patterns. The debate continues. Neither side has proven their case. The site is hard to study. Strong currents make diving dangerous. The shapes are covered in sea growth that hides details. True archaeological digging is almost impossible underwater. But the fact that this debate exists matters. Here is a structure that might be 10,000 years old and might belong to a lost civilization, and we cannot tell if it is natural or built. Our tools are not good enough. Our access is too limited. The deep sea keeps its secrets. Yonaguni is not alone. Strange underwater findings have been reported around the world. Near the coast of India, close to the city of Dwarka in Gujarat, sonar scans have found shapes that look like stone structures in the Gulf of Combat. Walls, platforms, regular geometric patterns. The site is underwater because the sea rose about 9,000 years ago. Indian archaeologists have brought up objects from the area, pottery pieces, stone tools, and what might be human remains. These finds are debated. Some scientists think they prove a submerged city existed. Others argue the objects may have been moved by rivers or that the shapes are natural. The site also connects to legend. Dwarka is the legendary city of Krishna, described in Hindu texts as a great capital swallowed by the sea after Krishna's death. The stories describe golden palaces and beautiful buildings, a city that sank beneath the waves in one day. If the underwater structures are real, they could be the historical source of the story. Similar stories exist worldwide. Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu, Cantre, Guelad. Many cultures tell stories of lands under the sea, cities drowned by gods or natural disasters, advanced societies lost to water. Mainstream archaeology sees these stories as myths, made up to explain strange coastlines or teach lessons about pride and destruction. But myths often hold memories of real events. Flood stories found worldwide may remember the fast sea level rise at the end of the Ice Age. Lost city legends may remember real settlements that were flooded as glaciers melted. Think about the timing. Sea levels rose quickly between 15,000 and 7,000 years ago. At times, the rise was extremely fast. Meltwater pulses released huge amounts of water in short periods. Coastlines could move inland by kilometers within one lifetime. People living near the sea would have seen their homes flooded, their cities drowned, their ancestors' graves washed away. This was not slow change over thousands of years. It was a series of disasters remembered by living people. Disasters strong enough to become flood myths that still exist today. If people lived on coasts then, they built structures now underwater. The continental shelves are where we should search for Ice Age civilizations, not today's coastlines, but ancient ones, not on land, but under the sea. Graham Hancock has argued this idea for many years. He believes a sophisticated Ice Age civilization existed and was destroyed by flooding. Survivors carried pieces of knowledge to higher lands. They became the mysterious teachers remembered in myths. The Apkallu of Mesopotamia, the Viracocha of Peru, the Shamsu of Egypt, figures who came from the sea and taught farming, astronomy, and building. The proof for this idea is indirect. The underwater structures are unclear. The myths can be read in many ways. Archaeology on land shows no clear proof of pre-Ice Age civilization, but missing evidence on land may not mean much. Land erodes. Land is farmed and built on. Land is exposed to weather for 10,000 years. Underwater places are different. Cold water preserves. Sediment protects. Objects that would rot on land may last forever on the seafloor. We have barely looked. Careful underwater archaeology in deep coastal waters is costly and difficult. Most work has focused on shallow sites where divers can work. Deeper shelves and ancient coastlines are mostly unexplored. When we do search, we keep finding strange things. Near Cuba, sonar scans have found shapes that look geometric at depths of 600 to 700 meters. The area covers about 2 square kilometers. It includes shapes that look like pyramids and rectangular buildings. At that depth, the site would have been above water more than 50,000 years ago, long before any known civilization. The Cuban site has not been fully studied. The first discovery in 2001 caused excitement and then silence. No peer-reviewed studies have been published. No independent checks have been done. The site remains a mystery, something that could be nothing or could be everything. Near Japan, there are other sites besides Yonaguni, Kurama, Chatten Oni. Each has shapes that may be natural or man-made. None has been fully explained. The seas around Japan may hold proof of Ice Age civilizations or may only hold strange rocks. Near Greece, the city of Pavloptri lies in shallow water. This site is clearly man-made. Stone buildings, streets, tombs, a planned city. It dates to about 3000 BCE and was flooded by earthquakes and rising seas. It proves that ancient cities can survive underwater. It shows what we might find in older, deeper sites. The sea keeps secrets, and we are just learning how to understand them. With better tools, more money, and careful study of continental shelves, we may find proof that land archaeology has missed. The underwater world is the last great frontier of archaeology. The place where the past may be saved in ways we never expected. The place where lost civilizations may still be waiting, quiet in the dark, covered in sand, coral, and time. But whether we find them or not, the pattern is clear. Civilizations rise and fall. Knowledge is gained and lost. Technology appears and disappears. The story of intelligence on Earth is not a smooth upward line. It is uneven with peaks and drops, progress and collapse, remembering and forgetting. This pattern may go far beyond human history. The geological wreck suggests that disasters happen on a regular schedule. Every 26 to 30 million years, something terrible happens. Mass extinctions, climate changes, the slate wiped clean and life starting over. If intelligence has appeared before, it would have faced these cycles. Rise and fall again and again over hundreds of millions of years. Let us examine the evidence for repeating disasters, the rhythm of destruction that may control the fate of all civilizations on Earth. Chapter 9. The Cycle of Collapse. The Earth keeps time using extinctions. Every few tens of millions of years, the planet shakes violently. Species that have thrived for ages suddenly disappear. Ecosystems that have been stable for long periods collapse. The survivors inherit a world changed. A world with empty roles and new chances. A world that will slowly refill and grow until the next disaster strikes. We call these events mass extinctions. There have been 5 major ones in the last 500 million years. The big 5 events so destructive that they mark the borders of geological eras. Before and after points in the history of life. The Ordovician Silurian extinction 445 million years ago. 85% of ocean species vanished. The cause is still debated. Ice ages, sea level changes, gamma-ray bursts from nearby exploding stars. Something killed most life in the oceans. The late Devonian extinction 375 million years ago, 75% of species lost over maybe 20 million years. Many waves of extinction instead of one event. Lack of oxygen in the oceans, climate change, asteroid hits. The causes overlapped and made each other worse. The Permian-Triassic extinction 252 million years ago, the Great Dying, the worst extinction in Earth's history, 90 to 96% of all species wiped out. The Siberian traps, huge volcanic eruptions covering millions of square kilometers, released enough carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide to wreck the planet. Oceans turned acidic, temperatures shot up. It took millions of years for life to recover. The Triassic-Jurassic extinction 201 million years ago, 80% of species lost. The Central Atlantic magmatic province. Another giant volcanic event may have started it. This extinction cleared the path for dinosaurs to rule. The Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction 66 million years ago, the famous one, the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. The Chicxulub impactor 10 km wide hit what is now the Yucatan Peninsula. The impact started worldwide fires. Dust and debris blocked the sun. The impact winter killed the dinosaurs and 3/4 of all species. 5 mass extinctions, 5 near-total collapses of life on Earth. 5 times life had to begin again from survivors, but here is the troubling pattern. The extinctions are not random. In 1984, paleontologists David Raup and Jack Sepkoski studied the fossil record and found something surprising. The major extinctions seem to happen at regular times. About every 26 million years, extinction rates jumped. The pattern lasted for at least the past 250 million years. 26 million years like clockwork, like a cosmic timer resetting Earth. What could cause this regular timing? Raup and Sepkoski suggested space-related causes. Maybe the Sun has a faint partner star, a brown dwarf on a long orbit that sometimes passes through the Oort cloud and sends comets toward the inner solar system. They named this imagined star Nemesis after the Greek goddess of punishment. Or maybe the timing is linked to the Sun's movement through the galaxy. The solar system moves up and down through the galaxy's plane as it circles the Milky Way. Each pass through the crowded center could expose Earth to more cosmic rays, dust, or gravity changes that disturb comets. The time of this movement is about 30 million years, close enough to the extinction cycle to be interesting. Other scientists have found similar patterns. Michael Rampino of New York University has said that mass extinctions of land animals follow the same 27 million year cycle as ocean extinctions. The ages of impact craters on Earth also show a repeating signal. Comet storms, extinctions, and impacts all seem to follow the same cosmic beat. The idea is still debated. Some statisticians say the pattern is caused by incomplete data. That if you search hard enough in messy data, you can find patterns that are not real. That the 26 million year cycle is an illusion, but the matches keep growing. The extinctions group together, the crater ages group together, the flood basalt eruptions, huge volcanic events that release carbon dioxide and ruin climates also seem to follow a pattern. Something is happening. Whether truly regular or just repeating, disasters return. Earth is not stable. It is a target in a cosmic shooting range. Now think about what this means for the Silurian hypothesis. If mass extinctions happen every 26 million years, then life has faced about 20 major disasters since complex life appeared 500 million years ago. 20 times the reset button has been pressed. 20 times ecosystems collapsed and rebuilt. If intelligence can evolve, if technological civilizations can form, then there have been 20 chances for that to happen. 20 windows of opportunity between disasters and 20 chances to be destroyed. The Silurian hypothesis asks if an industrial civilization could have existed millions of years ago. The extinction cycle gives a way for both its rise and its fall. A civilization could grow during a long, calm period between disasters. It could develop technology. It could leave traces like those Schmidt and Frank describe. Then the next disaster could erase it so completely that only unclear signs remain in the rock record. We think human civilization is unique, the first and only technological species. But we have existed for only a short time since the last mass extinction, 66 million years. In that time, many species have evolved and died out. Entire groups have risen and fallen. Why should intelligence be different? Dinosaurs ruled for 170 million years before the asteroid hit. 170 million years of evolution. Enough time for intelligence to appear if conditions allowed. We have no proof it did, but we also have very little proof about dinosaur intelligence at all. Soft tissues do not fossilize. Brains do not last. A species of intelligent dinosaurs could have existed, and we would not know from bones alone. The time since the dinosaurs has seen mammals rise. 66 million years of mammal evolution. Only in the last few million years has our line developed big brains and tools. But other animals show intelligence too. Dolphins, elephants, crows, octopuses. Intelligence appears again and again when conditions allow it. If the cycle continues, another disaster will come. Maybe from space, maybe from volcanoes, maybe from ourselves. And when it does, will anything remain? Will anyone remember that we existed? The rock record is our message to the future. The marks we leave in stone and dirt, the fossils of our bones and tools, the chemical signs of our industry, the extinction wave we are causing now. Future geologists, if any exist, will see our time as a spike, a sudden change in rock layers, a mass extinction, an odd signal in carbon records. They will see something happened, something short and violent. Will they understand it? Will they see the signs of technology? Or will our civilization become another unclear signal in the rocks, another crater, another warming event blamed on volcanoes or methane hydrates? The cycle does not care. The cosmic clock keeps ticking. The sun moves through the galaxy. Comets wait in the dark, and every 26 million years or so something arrives. We have been lucky. 66 million years since the last big impact. A long calm time for mammals to evolve and for one group to build technology. But luck ends. Numbers do not care about our dreams or achievements. The next disaster will come whether we are ready or not. Maybe this explains the Fermi paradox. The question of why, if the galaxy could hold life, we see no signs of others. Maybe civilizations are common. Maybe intelligence appears often. But maybe civilizations do not last. Maybe they are destroyed by the same disaster cycles that shape planets. Maybe the galaxy is quiet not because life is rare, but because civilizations are short-lived. We look to the stars and ask if anyone is there. But maybe we should look at the ground under our feet, at rock layers and extinction lines, at how often life restarts on our own planet. The Silurian hypothesis does not say past civilizations existed. It says we cannot know. But extinction cycles suggest that if they did exist, they would have been destroyed again and again. The pattern is clear. Rise and fall for 500 million years and counting. We think we are different. We think we have escaped the cycle. We have science and technology. We have nuclear power and space travel. We can see asteroids coming. We can predict eruptions. We can model climate. But can we survive ourselves? Can we avoid the fate of every species that thrived and then vanished? Can we break the cycle? That is the question our civilization faces. Not whether we were first, but whether we will be last. The past is clear, disasters happen, civilizations fall, knowledge is lost, the clock keeps ticking, and we are running out of time. Chapter 10. A species with amnesia, we have traveled far. From rock layers holding deep time secrets to monuments that confuse us. From cosmic disasters that reset Earth to precise artifacts that hint at lost knowledge. From underwater ruins suggesting drowned cultures to extinction cycles that remind us how fragile success is. Now we must ask the question built through this journey. What does it all mean? What should we learn from the evidence? What does it mean to be a species with amnesia? The phrase comes from Graham Hancock. It describes something important about humans. We forget our past, not just recent events, but the deep past of our species. History going back tens of thousands of years. Knowledge gained and lost before writing existed. Every generation thinks it stands at the top. Every age believes it discovered truths hidden from those before. We look back and see ignorance. We look ahead and imagine endless progress. We put ourselves at the center of a story moving from dark to light, from simple to advanced, from myth to science. But this story is wrong. History is not a smooth climb. It is uneven with rises and falls, progress and setbacks, golden ages and dark times, knowledge gained and lost. The Antikythera mechanism proves this. Here is a device from 2,000 years ago showing space and machine knowledge we did not think ancient people had. A device lost and not rebuilt for over 1,000 years. A device that sat in a museum for decades before being understood. What else have we lost? What other knowledge did ancient cultures create and then forget? What technologies existed that left no trace? What understanding lived in spoken stories that vanished when the last speaker died? We cannot know. Most of the past is darkness. The few objects and texts left are a tiny part of what once existed. We see through a fog. We rebuild ancient cultures from pieces and guesses. We fill gaps with ideas that may be wrong. The Silurian hypothesis extends this uncertainty into deep time. If knowledge can vanish in 2,000 years, it can vanish in 2 million or 200 million. The rock record saves some clues, but not everything. A technological civilization could rise and fall and leave only unclear signs. Signs we might explain as volcanoes or asteroid hits or natural climate change. We are not the first to face this mystery. If other civilizations existed, they faced it too. They looked back at broken histories. They wondered what came before. They asked if they were first or just the latest, and they were destroyed. Not by questions, but by forces that destroy everything over deep time. Asteroids, volcanoes, climate shifts, cycles shaping Earth for billions of years. This is not comforting. We want to believe we are special. We want to believe our civilization will last forever. We want to believe progress never ends. But evidence says otherwise. It shows civilizations are fragile, knowledge is easy to lose, and centuries of progress can vanish quickly. The Younger Dryas impact shows how fast things change. 12,800 years ago, something hit Earth. In years, climate changed. In centuries, big animals died and human cultures collapsed. Whatever existed before was mostly erased, yet something remained. Göbekli Tepe was built after. Knowledge survived somehow. Skills to carve 20-ton stones and place them in circles lasted through disaster. The wisdom to track the sky and mark it in stone was not fully lost. This is the other side of the story. Forgetting is not complete. Pieces remain, traditions last. Knowledge finds ways to pass on through disaster. Flood and fire myths around the world may be memories changed over time, but based on real events. Stories of wise teachers from the sea may remember survivors bringing knowledge from a destroyed age. We are not just forgetful. We are a species trying to remember, building monuments, writing stories, because we know how easily things are lost. Reaching back into darkness, trying to touch what came before. The scientists behind the Silurian hypothesis understood this. They did not say past civilizations existed. They said we cannot know. They asked us to be humble, to see the past as bigger and stranger than we think. This humility matters not to support wild ideas, but to allow real questions. It lets us study odd findings instead of ignoring them. Göbekli Tepe is odd. Puma Punku is odd. The PETM is odd. Periodic extinctions are odd. The Antikythera mechanism is odd. Each challenges our ideas of the past. Each hint's history is more complex than simple stories. We do not need lost civilizations to explain these things. There may be normal explanations, but they deserve careful study. They deserve serious research by people willing to follow evidence. That is real inquiry. Real inquiry accepts uncertainty. It tests ideas. It changes views when evidence demands. It does not force evidence to fit answers. The Tartarian conspiracy is not real inquiry. It ignores evidence and invents stories. It mixes recent history with ancient mystery. It harms serious questions by linking them to nonsense. But the real questions remain. What came before writing? How advanced were Ice Age cultures? What knowledge was lost and could be found again? What does the rock record truly say about past civilizations? These questions matter, not to prove myths, but to understand ourselves and how fragile success is. We forget, but we can learn to remember. We can read rocks better. We can study seabeds and deep sediments. We can decode ancient objects and patterns. The past is not gone. It is written in stone, ruins, and stories. It waits to be understood. Maybe that is the key lesson. Not whether past civilizations existed, but what that idea means for us. If we are the first technological species, we carry great responsibility. If we fail, intelligence may not rise again for millions of years. The universe may never know itself. If we are not first, we must learn from the past. We must understand why others failed. We must break the cycle, to survive, to spread beyond one fragile world. Either way, the stakes are huge. Either way, we must understand the past clearly. Not for comfort, but for truth. The Silurian hypothesis does not give answers. It tells us we do not know, that our certainty is weak, that the past is deeper than we imagine. This is not an ending. It is a beginning, an invitation to question and explore. We forget, but memory can return. Knowledge can be rebuilt. Darkness can be lit. If we are willing to look, question, and face what we find, the evidence is there. In rocks under our feet, in ocean sediments, in sunken objects, in buried monuments, in extinction cycles and strange clues. It has waited thousands, even millions of years, for someone to ask the right questions, for someone to remember. Maybe that is us. Maybe our time is when the story comes together. Or maybe we are just another short chapter before the next disaster, another species that asked but did not answer in time. We will not know unless we look. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, please like and subscribe. Your support allows these deep studies. Tell me what you think. Do you believe past civilizations existed? What proof would change your mind? What mysteries should we explore next? These questions matter not just for history, but for understanding ourselves. Who we are, where we came from, where we might go. We forget, but we want to remember. The search continues. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next investigation. Music.